FPL Game Week 38 top transfer targets with just one game week left. You have to be taking the right punts, making the right transfers to make up the ground you need or protect yourself in your leagues and in your overall rank. In today's video, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some hot transfers that I know you are considering. Should you be selling Isak? Do we think he's going to be available? And what should you do with Saliba, who is now out for the season? What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. Just a few days left of videos, but we will, of course, be back to do it all over again next year. So if you're new to the channel, make sure that you do hit that subscribe button. Just as, Harry, why are you wearing a Bristol City shirt? That is where I went for my stag do. If you don't remember me having a little show around, this is the shirt that I got. It does have stag on the back, but that's what I've got it. But it is quite nice. So good to get a little bit of use out of it in the videos this season. I'm sure we'll get it out again at some point. We're going to dive in and talk straight about a bit of injury news. The first thing is that William Saliba, along with Julian Timber, both in the Arsenal defence, have been ruled out for the game away at Southampton. There is quotes from Arteta on the Arsenal website if you want the full quotes. It's also on Twitter as well. Question for me is, what should you do? Should you be selling him or should you be benching him? Generally, I would be looking to bench him if you've got anyone half decent in terms of a Munoz, a Konza, a Milenkovic on your bench that you can look to cover him with. If you've got nothing else to do with your team, you potentially could look to sell him. But I think there are more important transfers to be made this week unless you have nothing else to do. In terms of Alexander Isak, I remain optimistic for those of you who still own him that he should be available going into Everton at home. We haven't had any update. No training ground photos from Newcastle as so far this week. We have had no update from Eddie Howe at the moment, and we will get a press conference on Friday, but Eddie Howe doesn't tend to be much help. Generally, I would be planning transfers around Alexander Isak still being available. I do think they have just waited and kept him sort of a little bit safe, not risked him in that Arsenal game, so that he can be available for Everton at home, which if they win, they will be back in the Champions League next season, and they know that, and that is what I think has happened. Now, we will talk about some forwards to buy, some potential transfers and changes, but depending on what updates we get on Isak, if we hear nothing going into the deadline and his minutes still look a little bit uncertain, you could look to sell him, but I do think he'll probably be okay. And then having a look at the fixture ticker now with just 1 week left, looking at the overall fixture ticker isn't actually that useful. Chelsea and Crystal Palace, who we have ownership in, quite low down. Arsenal, Bournemouth are the two teams with the green fixtures against Southampton and Leicester. But what's really most interesting is using the lovely graphics, the lovely data that we get from Rob T FPL over on Twitter, an essential follow on Twitter if you don't already, that predicts the goals and the clean sheets for the teams going into all the game weeks. And we're now looking specifically at just game week 38. So in terms of projected goals scored, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Arsenal and Newcastle are the top four. In terms of clean sheets, you've got Newcastle, Bournemouth and Arsenal, the top three. Again, we're really looking to target some of those fixtures with a combination of having a nice fixture in the likes of Arsenal and Bournemouth against Leicester and Southampton, but also Newcastle at home to Everton with a lot to play for and a lot on the line as well. There are a few others which are quite high up. Liverpool and Manchester City in terms of clean sheets alongside Aston Villa are okay, but if you're looking to buy this week, you're probably buying the top three in Newcastle, Bournemouth or Arsenal. In terms of goals scored, there are certain individuals that you could look at like Watkins, like Jared Bowen, like a Wissa, like an Mbermo, also quite high up the projected goals as well. Then we're having a look at the underlying data, and Crystal Palace remain the best attack over the past 6 game weeks. Their data over the course of the season is the 6th best attack as well. And looking at some of the data that we just saw from Rob T, it is projected that there will be goals in Liverpool versus Crystal Palace. And Liverpool projected to score a lot of goals, but the clean sheet chance for them is a little bit less, again, because of the Crystal Palace attack being pretty strong. With the likes of Mateta and Eze not starting for Crystal Palace last night, I do expect a pretty full-strength Crystal Palace going into game week 38 as well. Newcastle also high up there. Liverpool as well. Again, we're predicting goals. And Manchester City have created chances. Brighton are quite an interesting one. They play against a Spurs side. I'm recording before the Europa League final, so I haven't congratulated any fans on the result. And I haven't said sorry for the loss to the other set of fans in that game as well, because I do not know the result. Brighton and Aston Villa also quite high up there, playing against the two teams in the Europa League final. And you can write a narrative either way. Either they're going to be playing a team that are, down, they lost the final, they've got nothing to play for, but also the team that wins will have absolutely no care in the world about winning this final game because they've just won the Europa League. The final one up there is Brentford. Brian Burma and Wissa are both 1 goal away from 20 Premier League goals. That is something that doesn't really happen. I think Salah and Mane are about the only time the two players from the same club have scored 20 goals in the same Premier League season. And if Brian Burma and Wissa were to do that, that would be fantastic. So I do expect goals for Brentford. In terms of defensive performances, I think Nottingham Forest versus Chelsea is one of the games that if you had to predict a 0-0 result or a game with only 1 goal maximum in it, I think Nottingham Forest and Chelsea would be the one. Chelsea are top over the last 6 for their defensive data. Aston Villa, Manchester City, Everton and Brentford are all high up there. Although you have to look at some of them and think Brentford don't actually have that much to play for on the final day, and Everton have had a lot to go with in game week 37 in their final game at Goodison Park that I'm not certain on those two defensively. So to start off and talk about a few bits of chips, if you are one of the 10% of managers who've still got a chip left to play, starting and having a look at the assistant manager and the projections of that chip, Vitor Pereira has a 9.4 projection, has table bonus at home to Brentford in game week 38. It's also likely to be Matheus Cunha's last home game. I do expect Cunha to come back into the starting lineup for one last hurrah in a Wolves shirt. Next up is actually Ange Postecoglou. Now, how the final goes tonight might dictate how you feel about that game, but also has table bonus at home to Brighton. If you want a table bonus manager, I probably would go for Wolves, although Ange Postecoglou is not the worst, depending on what happens in the final tonight. In terms of safer options, you could have a look at Arteta. You can also have a look at Iraola. Going up against Leicester at home and Southampton away are probably the best two there. Elsewhere, if you're looking to play the wildcard or the free hit, we did a whole video on those two yesterday, so go and check that out. I'll put the link above right now if you want to click it. If you're playing one of those chips, go and have a look at that video yesterday. Bench boost, if you've got it, again, I would just play it. There's no other time to be playing it. Just play it. Don't be taking loads of hits unless you've got players who are definitely ruled out and you can buy a player with a great fixture like a Bournemouth attacker, a Bournemouth defender, or maybe an Arsenal defender. But even so, I would only probably take 1 hit at a maximum, and only if you have a player who is definitely not going to play. Triple captain, quite a few questions on the triple captaincy chip. Personally, I think Mo Salah is the best captain this week, and so the best triple captain. If you want to look elsewhere and you're wanting a few other differentials, Alexander Isak, if he was to be available, is a nice option. Bukayo Saka, if we got confirmation that he was going to be available, also a nice option. If not, you could look at someone like a Jared Bowen away at Ipswich, or of course, just go safe with someone like a Brian Burma, who needs 1 goal to hit 20 Premier League goals and is playing a Wolves side who have just conceded 4 to Crystal Palace. Looking at some of the top players I think we are realistically considering buying this week, number 1 is Evan Nielsen. If you're looking for a forward, I do think he is the number 1 at home to Leicester. There is some potential rotation with the likes of Kluivert, but I do expect Evan Nielsen to start this game. And although Bournemouth don't have anything to play for, it might mean that they just want to put on a show in the final game and can play completely stress-free, given that they cannot qualify for Europe. Outside of that, Jared Bowen is my favourite midfielder, closely followed by Bukayo Saka. If we got confirmation going into the deadline stream that Bukayo Saka was definitely going to start, he would then jump above Jared Bowen. But just because of the slight uncertainty of minutes for him, means I have ranked him 3rd instead of going above Bowen. Outside of that, I do like some of the Newcastle midfielders. We've got both Jacob Murphy and Anthony Gordon in here. It's a little bit uncertain exactly what system they're going to play. If they play a back 5 and Murphy's at wing back, although his minutes are secure, he's not that reliable in terms of attacking output. But if they go to a back 4, one of Barnes or Gordon will likely drop out. And I think it'll be Harvey Barnes with Gordon and Murphy given the nod. And Gordon, I thought, looked pretty good in the match against Arsenal. His predicted points are a little bit lower though, just because of the slight uncertainty of minutes. Also up front, if you don't want to go with Evan Nielsen, I do like Wissa. He is highly owned, but again, 1 goal away from 20 Premier League goals, so I do think he'll want that. Kluivert, I put this graphic together before the game against Manchester City on Tuesday night. Maybe a little bit uncertain now because he got that halftime sub, but with Cook being out suspended, it does boost the likely minutes for someone like a Kluivert. If you want to play it safer though, Semenyo is always good for minutes at the moment, and we've already spoken about Jacob Murphy as a cheap option. In defence, Arsenal, Newcastle and Bournemouth are the defences you should be looking to target. Ben White is my favourite of Arsenal. Some of you have asked about Calafiori, but with Saliba out, Calafiori will likely play centre-back and he's not nearly as attacking there. If you wanted to predict if it was Tierney or Zinchenko or, Lewis Skelly playing left-back, although he's a midfielder, if Zinchenko or Tierney play left-back, they're worth a shout. But with Timber out, I like Ben White. In terms of the Newcastle defence, Dan Burn or Fabian Schär are my favourite just because Everton are without Branthwaite and Tarkowski, so will likely be quite fragile from set pieces. So I've gone with Dan Burn. You could also go with Livramento. It doesn't look like Trippier will be available, or Fabian Schär as the best differential. You could also punt on Bournemouth at home to Leicester. They have looked a little bit fragile defensively though, which is why they're third in the list, but Kirkes is very attacking and I don't think you can go too wrong with him. Outside of them, if you're looking for differentials, here are my some to consider for you. Anthony Gordon was in the last list. I do like him. I don't think many people will be looking to own him. There is some ownership of someone like a Jacob Murphy. Not that many people are going with an Anthony Gordon, and I do quite like him and what I saw in game week 37 from him. Going with Martinelli over going with Bukayo Saka is a nice differential. His minutes and performances lately have been really solid, and I do expect him to start against Southampton. Kluivert and Semenyo are actually not very highly owned, and in terms of actual transfers in so far, are not really being targeted at the moment. Most people are going with Evan Nilsson from Bournemouth or trying to find money for a Jared Byrne or Bukayo Saka, so I do expect these to be quite big differentials. Elsewhere at Arsenal, Kai Havertz along with Martinelli, you'd have to get news that he definitely starts though going into the deadline because it's definitely not guaranteed. We've also got Mikel Merino in this, and it's quite likely that only one of Havertz or Merino will start. And if we knew who was going to start up front for Arsenal in game week 38 away at Southampton out of Havertz or Merino, I really like them, but you'd have to get that confirmation in order to buy them, I think. Trent, most Liverpool fans do not think he's going to start, and that is probably the right case, and that is why his predicted points on the Fantasy Football Scout website are quite low. If we got confirmation, though, that Trent was going to play in game week 38 in his final home game, not many people could go there, and he would be a fantastic differential. Cunha should start at Wolves, although it's not guaranteed. Strand Larsen has been good recently. It is a home fixture at home to Brentford, who have leaked goals recently. Attacking threat has been pretty good, as we saw in game week 37. Although they conceded a lot of chances, Strand Larsen did get in the returns. We've spoken about Liverpool, we've spoken about Mo Salah, but Luis Diaz or Gakpo, who I both think will start in game week 38, offer nice differentials and have been very solid. Gakpo has actually returned a lot of points at home, which could be good for him in game week 38. And a bit of a differential, Souček's minutes at West Ham are not fully reliable, but away at Ipswich, if I told you some random midfielder returned a 10-pointer, it could well be Souček with his goal threat. Talking through some popular transfers, I think one of the most popular transfer combinations this week is Alexander Isak out, along with a Crystal Palace midfielder, to buy Evan Nilsson and Bukayo Saka. I probably would look to do this, definitely for free, because you get two good players in the space of one probably, but most of you will be benching Sarr this week, so it might depend a little bit on who drops to the bench as a result. If Alexander Isak is ruled out, I would then do it for a -4, but if Alexander Isak is available, I think I would probably only do it for free, unless you're benching Sarr, unless you're starting Sarr this week, in which case, if you're starting both Isak and Sarr, Evan Nilsson and Saka, if we get confirmation that Saka was available in that situation and it ticks all of those boxes, then maybe I'd start to consider it for a -4. Would I sell Kevin De Bruyne to Jared Byrne or Bukayo Saka for free? Yes, for a -4. No, unless we got confirmation that De Bruyne was not starting going into the deadline, in which case I probably would sell him for a hit. And final one, would I sell Saliba to someone like a Ben White, to a Dan Burn? We spoke about this a little bit at the beginning. If you've got nothing else to do, if you've got no other transfers you want to make, then yes, but I'd probably just bench him for someone on your bench and make it a more exciting attacking transfer. And that is discussing basically everything I wanted to discuss in 15 minutes. So this last section of the video is going to be a bit more ad lib. We're going to talk just about all the games because there will be some players who you are wanting me to discuss that I probably haven't put in my top 10 rankings, and then as a result just naturally get left out. So to start off with Bournemouth Leicester, I think we've spoken a lot about this. Bournemouth, great. Clean sheet potential, great. Goal threat, also great. Nothing really from Leicester. And also with the Vardy party being in game week 37, I'm not expecting very much from Leicester in this game. So Bournemouth feel like a great buy. Fulham, Manchester City, you're probably not buying anything new from this game. You're definitely not buying Fulham, I don't think. Fulham can't qualify for any European places now. Manchester City, I think they actually only need a point. So it might not be quite as high scoring a game as maybe we'd want. If you want to sell a Haaland, you want to sell a Kevin De Bruyne for someone a little bit more explosive, you can. I'm not sure it's worth a hit, but for free, if you've got nothing else to do, I would consider it. If you've got a Savinio, yeah, I would look to move him on now. Defensively, you can bet against Gavardio if you want, but I'm not sure it's worth a transfer. Ipswich, West Ham, the only real player to really discuss in this is Jared Bowen. I think he has good potential this week. It is away from home. He is a good captaincy option as well. We'll talk about captaincy in the complete guide on Saturday morning, but there's not too much to talk about. If Fulkrog was going to start, if Wan-Bissaka, you want to go with him, if you want to punt on Kudus or a Souček, I don't mind it. But the only real headline asset in this game is going to be Jared Bowen. If we knew Delap was going to start, you wanted to punt on Enciso, okay, go for it, but they're not really recommendations from me. Palace, Liverpool, I expect to see a lot of goals in this game. I do think it will be Luis Diaz, Gakpo, Salah, front three. They're all nice punts. I'm not sure I'd be buying either team defensively. And, Palace assets, attackers are okay, Munoz are okay, but I wouldn't be expecting that much from them. Next up is Manchester United, Aston Villa. It will depend what narrative you want to create for Manchester United after the Europa League final, but Aston Villa, I do think, of course, will win this game as they need to win it for Champions League football. Watkins is still a good option. He's still a good buy if you want. Rodgers is a fine hold and fine start if you need to this week. Newcastle, Everton, I am expecting a comfortable Newcastle win because they, need to win for European Champions League football. I wouldn't be surprised if this was 2 or 3-0. If they go 2-0 up, they're probably not going to go gung-ho for a third goal if it risks being caught on the break and, conceding and going 2-1. They will want to close the game out and make sure they get Champions League football. So I predict a sort of 2-0, 3-0 win here. Nottingham Forest, Chelsea is likely to be the lowest scoring game of the game week. If you've got defenders from either side, there's no problem in starting a Milenkovic. There's no problem with starting a Kukurea if you've got them. If you've got someone like a Chris Wood or a Cole Palmer, I think they're fine. If you've got a luxury transfer to sell them, I probably would because I don't expect loads of goals in this game, but they're also fine to start, right? They're both on penalties for their team. They both need a win in their final game of the season. So you've got to expect there to be some sort of goals, and it probably won't finish 0-0. And if you do end up with the goal scorer, they'll probably get max bonus because I don't expect many goals in this game. Southampton, Arsenal, we have spoken about. I expect a win for Arsenal. It's just trying to predict who starts. If you predict correctly who starts and you get a starter that's a differential like an Odegaard, like a Marino, like a Trossard, like a Martinelli, like a Havertz, or even a Saka, they could do very well. And I do like them defensively, even without Saliba there. So I'm backing Arsenal there. Spurs-Brighton is probably the game I predict most likely to end in about a 4-4 draw. If you want to back Spurs, depending on the lineup in the Europa League final, if you want to back Brighton in a differential and someone like a Matoma or a Minte or a Welbeck, you can. I just don't think they're the best options this week, but they could be good differentials. Matoma has been asked a bit. Only issue with him, though, is he hasn't started reliably. Although he has been scoring off the bench, you can't buy a player just because they've been scoring well off the bench. I don't think the lineup is certain enough unless you want to go for someone like a Danny Welbeck who should play. Finally, at Wolves and Brentford, I do think Cunha will start. I also think Strand Larsen would start. If you've got an 8 Nori, they're fine holds. I probably wouldn't be buying new, though, unless we got confirmation that Cunha was definitely going to start on his final day. And at Brentford, I expect goals in this game. I expect both teams to score, so I don't love the defenders, but Burma and Wissa are really nice. Kevin Schade should probably start as well, and I do expect goals in this game from both teams. So hopefully, if I didn't cover everything in detail in the first part, this sort of general view at the end will give you what you need. And actually, if you've enjoyed this part of the video, it's something I'm thinking about including in this transfer targets video going into next season as well. So let me know your thoughts on this, because over the summer, I'm always looking to improve the videos as best I can. All your feedback will be taken on board. Anything you like about these videos, anything you're looking to improve, this is the video I always am looking to change and tweak as much as I possibly can. Anyway, any questions that haven't been answered in this, I don't know how long video now, drop it all in the comment section down below. I'll be back tomorrow, Thursday. Sorry, I'll be back on Friday. It'll be Thursday upload for this one. I'll be back on Friday with my team selection, Saturday morning for the complete guide, and then finally the deadline stream on Sunday. I appreciate all your support on the channel. I will say thank you so many times this week. It has been an incredible season. Let's finish it on a high with Game Week 38. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.